The film begins with a search party in a dense forest, where officers and local residents are frantically calling out the name of those who have gone missing. The scene then shifts focus to a specific cave, marked uniquely by a strange bell hanging at its entrance. Two search dogs arrive here, sniffing around as if searching for something but ultimately unable to find anyone. Instead, they lower their heads and begin drinking water from a nearby pool. As the scene progresses, an officer calls them over, but the dogs refuse to move, their gaze locked onto one another. Later, back at his home, the officer looks alarmed as he observes that the dogs are still fixated on each other, completely motionless. Hours slip by, and suddenly he starts hearing guttural growling and high-pitched squeaks coming from the dog's direction. He rushes to investigate and nearly loses his life when he sees the dog's body grotesquely merging into an unnatural, horrific fusion. The scene cuts away from this disturbing moment and introduces us to a couple, Tim and Millie, who are celebrating a farewell party with their friends as they prepare to leave the city behind. Millie has secured a new job in a small town, a move that clearly displeases Tim. He's a struggling musician who has seen little success lately, and their relationship appears strained. During the gathering, Tim's friends mention an upcoming tour where they are searching for a new guitarist. This news excites Tim, but also makes him anxious, as the tour would mean frequent trips back to the city, something he finds stressful. Despite his reservations, he accepts the opportunity and agrees to travel, even though he doesn't know how to drive. As Tim gives a farewell speech, Millie surprises him by dropping to one knee with an invisible ring, asking him to spend his life with her. For a long moment, Tim thinks she's joking. He hesitates, but eventually says yes, although his response feels awkward. The mood is tense yet hopeful. That evening, Millie remains upset by his hesitant reaction, but Tim apologizes, assuring her of his love. She tries to get intimate with him, but he refuses, claiming he's too drunk and just wants to rest. The next scene shows the couple settling into their new home. Deep in the woods, Millie leaves for her new teaching job at the local school, where she quickly befriends Jamie, a neighboring teacher. Jamie is friendly and kind and mentions that the woods and trails nearby are fantastic for exploring, urging her to take advantage of the area's natural beauty. The following morning, Tim and Millie head out exploring the woods together, following a marked trail, but it abruptly ends, which leaves them disappointed. Tim then finds a hidden, overgrown patch covered by thick branches and shrubs. He suggests they venture down it, despite Millie's initial hesitation. As they walk, they notice small, strange bells hanging along the trail. Suddenly, a fierce storm erupts, and they lose track of their way. Tim tries using his phone's compass, but he doesn't understand how it works, leaving them completely disoriented. Without warning, they fall into a dark, ominous cave beneath the trees. Once inside, they survey their surroundings. The giant bell beside them confirms they are in the same place the dogs discovered at the beginning of the film. Millie finds the place eerie and suggests leaving immediately, but Tim insists they stay until the storm subsides. Their situation worsens when they become suddenly parched and end up drinking from a nearby pool of water. Tim builds a fire with some old wood he finds, trying to keep warm. Eventually, exhausted, they eventually fall asleep, but in the morning they wake up to a horrifying sight. Their legs are fused together as if glued by an unexplainable force. They struggle desperately to pull apart, enduring excruciating pain and tearing their skin in the process. Despite this gruesome ordeal, they barely dwell on it and hurriedly exit the cave, breathing a sigh of relief. Back home, Millie asks Tim for a massage. Sore from sleeping in the cave, he agrees and begins to touch her gently. But suddenly, his hands tighten with an unnatural force. His grip becomes fierce and Millie is hurt, prompting her to slap his hands away and snap him out of it. She's worried about his strange behavior and Tim quickly apologizes, claiming he doesn't understand what's happening. Maybe he's just exhausted. Later, Millie departs to buy groceries, while Tim heads to the shower. As Millie drives away, Tim suddenly experiences wild seizures. His body convulses uncontrollably and is pulled in whichever direction Millie moves, as if some invisible force is controlling him. The seizures are so intense that they leave him gasping and helpless. Tim visits a doctor explaining the incident in the cave along with his peculiar symptoms that morning. The doctor dismisses the episodes as anxiety from unfamiliar surroundings, prescribing muscle relaxants to keep his body calm during panic attacks. The doctor also notes that they have been lucky to survive. He mentions a recent case of a couple who went missing in the same area but were never found despite an extensive search. Tim, curious, searches for news about the missing couple and uncovers that they had recently moved into this very area. He finds a photo online and sifts through their social media. Feeling a mixture of guilt and curiosity, he shows Millie, and both of them are disturbed by the realization of what might have happened. Suddenly, their discussion is interrupted by a knock at the door. Jamie arrives, greeting them with a warm bottle of wine. Millie invites him in, and they share stories, with Millie recounting their unsettling woods experience, and Tim mentioning the strange bells that made him feel like it was a cult symbol. Jamie reveals that a chapel once stood in that area, operated by a group of hippies who eventually dwindled away. He offers compliments on the food Tim cooks and describes how Millie always drives him around. He mentions that the villagers are friendly, but Tim voices his frustration about feeling confined in this remote place, noting that he can't even reach the train station unless she's available. This sparks a minor argument, but Jamie diffuses it by commenting that they complement each other. After Jamie departs, Tim's feelings for Millie deepen and he begins to kiss her passionately. Yet, something strange happens. Their lips seem to stick together. Millie suspects Tim bit her, but he insists he's been feeling increasingly strange and disconnected lately. She becomes annoyed, accusing him of using his weird feelings as an excuse to avoid intimacy. The next morning, Tim prepares to leave for a band rehearsal in the city. Millie drives him to the train station, urging him to stay an extra night and enjoy his friends instead of feeling trapped. She suggests some space might help them. As she drives away, Tim suddenly starts struggling to breathe. His face reddens as he tries to take muscle relaxant, but the pill has no effect. The train departs, leaving him sick and helpless on the platform. Meanwhile, Millie at school notices a drawing by one of her students, a disturbing sketch showing two dogs grotesquely fused together. She's immediately shaken. Momentarily, she looks out the window and sees Tim nearby, looking distressed as well. She rushes to him, bringing him into the bathroom to find out what he's doing there. Tim claims he only wanted to see her and suddenly begins kissing her fiercely. They hurriedly retreat to a bathroom stall where they make love. However, once they try to separate, they realize their genitals are stuck together again. They struggle desperately, tearing at the flesh in a panic as a child peeks outside the stall. After the child leaves, Millie covers Tim's mouth to keep him quiet. Suddenly, Jamie's voice is heard outside, startling her. She nervously exits the stall while Tim hides. Jamie appears with the young boy, asking Millie what she's doing there, confusing the bathroom's purpose. Since it's a boy's room, he cautions her to use the staff restroom from now on. Before leaving, he notices Tim's legs in the stall but says nothing. Back at home, an angry Millie confronts Tim, accusing him of jeopardizing her job or even risking her arrest. He apologizes, insisting something is terribly wrong with him, that his mind and body aren't connecting. She accuses him of sabotaging her deliberately because he has no career aspirations, which hurts him deeply. Later, Millie visits Jamie to apologize for what happened at school. He assures her it's no problem. But as she begins to cry, he invites her inside. Inside, she notices a photo of Jamie with a man, probably his partner. She confesses her marriage with Tim has been strained, though they still love each other. Jamie shares that he once went through a similar phase, leaving his partner in search of happiness, but realizing later the loneliness of freedom wasn't worth it. His wedding ring still adorns his finger, and he mentions wanting to show her a wedding video. But just then, she notices Tim lurking outside and excuses herself hurriedly. Tim approaches her, apologizing again, but she keeps her distance, clutching his hand tightly. That night, Tim alone sits down with his laptop, revisiting the photos of the missing couple from a few days ago. As he digs deeper, he is stunned to discover that their last known location was on the same trail they recently hiked, recognizing the peculiar bell behind the couple in the pictures. He tries to find more details, but suddenly his internet connection cuts. A loud thud rings out nearby, startling him. He rushes over to investigate and is horrified to find Millie suspended in a trance midair. He quickly opens the door to her room and she collapses into his arms, still convulsing. Frightened, Tim slaps her to wake up, and she finally snaps out of it. They sit there in shock, trying to process what just happened, and Millie suggests it could have been a seizure or sleepwalking. Tim disagrees, stressing that all the strange events since visiting that cave point to something supernatural. He mentions the missing couple in the same area and questions what forces are at play. He vows to visit the cave first thing tomorrow, eager to investigate further. But Millie dismisses his suspicions. She reminds him that her parents are coming this Sunday and she doesn't want him around when they arrive, which deeply hurts him. That night, they sleep separately. Around midnight, Tim is suddenly awakened by a terrifying experience. An invisible force drags him down the hallway. Panicked and fighting against it, he struggles with all his might. Just as he does, Millie's door opens on its own and she is pulled into the hallway as well. Both of them scream in terror. Their hands fuse together, experiencing unbearable pain. In the chaos, Tim remembers the muscle relaxants they have and quickly swallows a couple, which temporarily halts the fusion process. Exhausted, they collapse into unconsciousness. The following morning, Tim wakes up tied to a chair with duct tape covering his mouth. He realizes that their arms are still fused. Millie urgently explains they must separate before the drugs wear off and hands him alcohol to dull the pain. She then plans to cut their joint flesh with a chainsaw, then bandage the wounds. Horrified but realizing that they have no other choice, Tim agrees. Millie grabs the chainsaw and with tears streaming down her face, she drives it into their shaved flesh, both screaming in agony as she cuts through their joined bodies. Later, they lie exhausted, their arms bandaged tightly. Tim checks the medication bottle and sees only 2 pills remaining. Millie insists they need to get to a hospital quickly before their bodies fuse again. Tim argues that the problem runs deeper, but seeing her resolve, he agrees to go. However, she remembers she left her keys at Jamie's place and rushes to retrieve them. While there, she finds the peculiar bell hanging at Jamie's door. She tries contacting Jamie but gets no answer. Soon, she hears strange noises from inside, only to realize they are coming from the TV. She watches footage showing a wedding ceremony of 2 men in a chapel, but neither is Jamie. Then the footage shifts to a dark ritual. The men are cutting their arms and beginning the terrifying fusion process. The horrifying truth surfaces. This is part of a sinister cult. Jamie suddenly appears and explains that the day the wedding was filmed was one of the happiest days of his life, an initiation into something wonderful. Meanwhile, Tim explores the cave on his own and spots a painting depicting the fusion ritual, confirming that the chapel once stood here. He suddenly collapses on the ground, paralyzed as a grotesque creature, an eerie fusion of the missing couple, approaches him. It becomes clear that those who resist fusion are trapped in this horrifying form, destined to spend their lives in this hellish existence. Jamie tries to persuade Millie that this blending is a gift, a way to deepen love and connection. to become whole. She refuses to accept it, but Jamie tells her she is already part of it. She won't like what's happening to her. At the same time, in the cave, the creature draws near to Tim. He sees it clearly, an obscene, fused shape of the missing couple, screaming horror. The film implies that anyone resisting the fusion ends up in this monstrous state, forever trapped. Jamie continues trying to convince Millie to join the cult, even going so far as to cut her wrist to hasten the fusion process. She fights him off and flees. Meanwhile, Tim fights the creature with his knife, managing to escape using his rope. Eventually, both Tim and Millie arrive back at their home simultaneously, only to be pulled together by a powerful magnetic force. Tim claims he now knows how to stop it. He pulls out an invisible ring, proposing marriage. He tearfully confesses his love, saying he's nothing without her. The moment is emotional, but then he asks her to close her eyes. He threatens to slit his throat, insisting that ending his life is the only way to prevent their eternal fusion. Millie, horrified, tries to stop him, noticing the blood on her own wrist, and desperately tries to help him. As she faints, Tim breaks down, devastated. Hours later, Millie wakes up in the house and Tim reveals that all of it was the only way to stop the bleeding. Her heart shatters when she sees that they have diffused again. Surprisingly, Tim appears at peace, pulling out her favorite album. They then begin to dance, a strange, dark culmination of their union. They undress and Millie asks if he truly wants this, to which he responds affirmatively. In an unexpected ending, the couple completely merges into a single, unified being. In the final scene, a car pulls up outside the house. Millie's parents step out, approaching the door where the same ominous bell hangs. An androgynous figure greets them with a strange calm, and it suggests that Millie and Tim have completed the fusion process, forever intertwined.